When it comes to relationships, we often hear people say, "I need you," or "I can't live without you." These phrases seem romantic and reassuring, but they also reveal a deeper, more dangerous truth about our attachments. In many cases, they point to an emotional dependency that can trap us in cycles of anxiety, fear, and unfulfilled expectations. But what if the way we think about need and attachment is completely wrong? The Stoics, ancient philosophers who focused on wisdom and inner peace, believed that our desires, especially emotional ones, are the root cause of most of our suffering. They argued that when we depend too heavily on others, whether it's for love, approval, or validation, we hand over control of our happiness to someone else, and that's a recipe for disaster. In their view, true peace comes not from getting others to meet our needs, but from realizing that our happiness should never be dependent on them. Emotional independence is key to the Stoic philosophy. It doesn't mean we don't care for others or that we should distance ourselves from love. It means we should not rely on someone else to fill a void inside us. When we are emotionally independent, we don't put the weight of our well-being on another person's shoulders. Instead, we cultivate inner strength, learning to find fulfillment within ourselves. In a relationship, this kind of independence doesn't weaken the bond, it strengthens it. You're not clinging to the other person out of fear or neediness. Instead, you're both coming together as equals, each bringing your own sense of purpose, stability, and self-worth. This balance is what creates a solid foundation for a healthy, lasting relationship, one where both partners can thrive individually without the pressure of being each other's sole source of happiness. The Stoics understood that true strength lies not in how much we need others, but in how much we can stand on our own, emotionally and mentally. Building on the idea of emotional independence, it's essential to understand how Stoicism helps us navigate our desires, especially when it comes to relationships. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the recognition that desires are natural, but not all desires serve us in the same way. Stoics make a crucial distinction between what they call natural desires and vain desires. Natural desires are the basic, instinctual things we need to live. A desire for food, shelter, and companionship. These are healthy and aligned with our nature, something we can pursue without causing ourselves harm. On the other hand, vain desires are those that go beyond our basic needs and are often driven by external influences or unrealistic expectations, like the desire for excessive attention, validation, or constant reassurance in relationships. These desires can create inner turmoil because they are often unattainable or unsustainable. When we allow ourselves to be consumed by vain desires, whether it's a longing for constant affection, romantic idealism, or the need for approval, we open the door to emotional disturbance. Stoicism teaches that these kinds of desires are dangerous because they lead to internal conflict. The more we want something that is beyond our control, the more frustrated and anxious we become when we can't have it. For instance, in relationships, we might want our partner to act a certain way, to always be available, or to love us in a specific manner. When reality doesn't match our expectations, we are left feeling disappointed or hurt, and this can lead to unnecessary suffering. One of the most powerful teachings of Stoicism is the ability to distinguish between what we can and cannot control. Stoics urge us to focus only on what's within our power, our actions and our responses. We can control how we treat others, how we communicate, and how we react to different situations. However, we have no control over other people's feelings, thoughts, or behaviors. This truth is especially vital in relationships, where we often try to control or influence how others behave toward us. If we expect someone to always respond in a way that aligns with our desires, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. In a romantic relationship, for example, we might want our partner to always understand us without needing to explain ourselves. While this may be a natural desire, it's ultimately out of our control, and we should focus on accepting and communicating openly instead of clinging to unrealistic expectations. The Stoic practice of focusing on what we can control is a crucial part of freeing ourselves from the turmoil of unattainable desires. When we learn to separate our expectations from the reality of what we can influence, we become less reactive and more at peace. This doesn't mean we don't care, or that we shouldn't have desires. It simply means that we understand that we cannot always control the outcomes, especially when it comes to others. By practicing this mindset, we can cultivate stronger, healthier relationships, where both parties are free from the burden of unrealistic expectations and unnecessary emotional strain. Continuing from the understanding of desire and control, it's important to dive deeper into emotional independence and why it's so crucial in building a healthy, strong relationship. Emotional independence at its core means being able to manage your own emotions without overly relying on others to provide validation or approval. It's about finding peace within yourself rather than expecting someone else to fill an emotional void. This doesn't mean you should be distant or avoid emotional connections, but rather that your happiness and well-being shouldn't be dependent on someone else's actions or feelings. Emotional independence is the foundation for both personal and relational growth, allowing individuals to thrive as they don't rely on others for their emotional stability. In the Stoic worldview, self-sufficiency plays a central role in cultivating inner peace. Stoicism teaches that true happiness doesn't come from external sources, but from cultivating virtues within ourselves. We can't control the behavior of others, but we can control our responses and how we choose to navigate the ups and downs of life. By embracing this idea of self-sufficiency, we create a sense of inner peace that isn't shaken by the changing tides of relationships or external circumstances. When you are emotionally independent, you're less likely to be thrown off balance by small things that happen in your relationship, such as disagreements or moments of distance. Instead of reacting impulsively or letting your emotions control you, you can remain calm and composed, allowing the relationship to grow in a healthier way. Stoicism also offers practical exercises to build emotional independence. One of the most powerful tools is reflecting on the impermanence of all things, including relationships. Everything in life is temporary. People change, circumstances evolve, and even love may ebb and flow over time. By contemplating this, we learn not to cling too tightly to any one person or expectation. This helps us avoid putting all our emotional energy into someone else, allowing us to enjoy the relationship without the fear of loss or the pressure to make it everything we want it to be. Another Stoic practice is focusing on virtue over external validation. Instead of seeking constant praise or approval from others, Stoics believe in cultivating inner virtues like wisdom, courage, and integrity. By focusing on becoming a better version of ourselves for our own sake, not for the approval of others, we can feel more fulfilled and less reliant on outside sources for our sense of self-worth. The benefits of emotional independence go beyond just personal growth. it also strengthens the relationship itself. When both partners are emotionally independent, they are not seeking to complete each other or rely on each other for constant validation. Instead, they can approach the relationship as two whole individuals coming together to share experiences, grow together, and support each other. This dynamic fosters mutual respect and freedom, allowing both people to feel secure in who they are, independent of each other. Rather than viewing the relationship as a source of validation, it becomes a partnership where both people can thrive as individuals, while also building something meaningful together. One of the most common myths in modern relationships is the idea that we need someone else to complete us. This narrative suggests that we are somehow lacking or incomplete on our own, and that another person can fill that gap. According to Stoicism, this is a false belief. We are already whole as individuals, and the idea that we need someone else to make us complete leads to dependency, insecurity, and emotional unrest. Stoics argue that we should focus on developing our own strengths and virtues so that we can bring our best selves into a relationship, not in the hopes that someone else will fill in the gaps. When both partners approach the relationship from a place of emotional independence, they create a healthier, more balanced connection, where both individuals can support each other without the pressure of needing to complete one another. In the end, emotional independence allows both individuals to grow and flourish as they are. It frees them from the unrealistic expectations of dependency and lets them appreciate each other for who they truly are. Instead of relying on the relationship to define their worth or happiness, each person can find fulfillment in their own journey, knowing that the bond they share is based on mutual respect, love, and understanding. Through Stoic practices and focusing on inner peace, emotional independence becomes not just a personal achievement, but a cornerstone for creating stronger, healthier relationships. Building on the concept of emotional independence, it's important to also understand the dynamics of mutual need in a relationship. Contrary to popular belief, healthy relationships aren't built on one-sided neediness or dependency, but on mutual support. In a thriving relationship, both partners bring something to the table and are able to rely on each other in ways that encourage growth, rather than fostering insecurity or emotional instability. This mutual support comes from each person recognizing that their happiness and well-being should not be entirely dependent on the other person. Instead, it's about sharing life, supporting one another, and being a source of strength for each other without losing sight of individual needs and desires. When two people enter into a relationship with this understanding, it creates a strong foundation built on respect, shared values, and love, rather than expectation and dependence. From a Stoic perspective, the idea of interdependence is essential for maintaining healthy relationships, but it's crucial to distinguish this from dependency. Interdependence means that while we can rely on each other for emotional support, companionship, and care, we are still self-sufficient in our personal growth and emotional stability. Dependency, on the other hand, means relying on the other person to fill emotional gaps or to define our happiness. Stoics teach that true peace comes from recognizing what is within our control and what isn't. While we can control our actions and reactions, we can't control how another person behaves or feels. So instead of depending on others to bring us happiness, we focus on our own emotional independence, knowing that the best relationships come from a place of balance and respect, rather than neediness or pressure. Another critical aspect of a healthy relationship, according to Stoicism, is the importance of maintaining individual growth while being part of a partnership. A relationship should never hinder personal development, but rather, it should support each person's journey of self-improvement. Stoicism emphasizes the need to continue cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, and integrity, regardless of our relationship status. While relationships provide the opportunity for emotional connection and shared experiences, they should not become a reason to abandon our personal growth. Each person in the relationship must be encouraged to pursue their own path, explore their passions, and grow as an individual. When both people in a relationship are focused on self-improvement and development, they bring more to the table, allowing the relationship to evolve in healthier, more fulfilling ways. The idea that we should never base our happiness solely on another person is a central tenet of Stoic thought. It's natural to care deeply for the people we love, but Stoicism teaches us that our happiness should come from within. We may feel joy and satisfaction from our relationships, but we should never rely on them to complete us or define our sense of self-worth. This is where emotional independence comes into play once again. While we may deeply care for someone, we must always maintain a sense of self and recognize that our own happiness is ultimately our responsibility. When we rely on others for our emotional fulfillment, we place an unfair burden on them, and in turn, we can feel disappointed or lost when they inevitably can't meet all our expectations. True contentment, according to Stoicism, comes from understanding that happiness is a state of mind that we can cultivate ourselves, independent of anyone else's actions or emotions. Throughout history, many Stoic philosophers such as Epictetus and Seneca emphasized the importance of maintaining balanced relationships. Epictetus, for example, often spoke about how our happiness is determined by our responses to external events, not by the events themselves. This wisdom is especially relevant in relationships. We cannot control how someone else behaves, but we can control how we respond to them. If we approach relationships with the understanding that we cannot control another person's feelings or actions, we free ourselves from unnecessary emotional turmoil. Seneca also echoed similar ideas, reminding us that our relationship should be based on mutual respect, not on our ability to manipulate or control others. He believed that we should not attach our happiness to anyone or anything external, including our relationships, because only by doing so can we maintain peace of mind. Both Epictetus and Seneca understood that balanced relationships, where both people contribute to each other's well-being but are also self-sufficient, are the key to long-term happiness and fulfillment. In conclusion, the dynamics of mutual need in a relationship should always be grounded in interdependence rather than dependency. By fostering emotional independence and recognizing that our happiness is not defined by another person, we can build strong, supportive relationships that help both individuals grow. This Stoic understanding helps us navigate relationships with clarity, avoiding unnecessary attachment, and focusing on mutual respect and growth. By applying these principles, we can create relationships that not only survive but thrive, grounded in balance, wisdom, and shared strength. As we continue to explore the dynamics of healthy relationships, it's crucial to address the dangers of over-attachment. Attachment in Stoic philosophy refers to the emotional bond we form with people, objects, or outcomes. While attachment is natural, Stoicism teaches us that excessive attachment can become dangerous, leading to unnecessary suffering. The Stoics argue that when we attach ourselves too strongly to something or someone, we lose our peace of mind. We begin to rely on things outside of our control for our happiness, and when those things inevitably change or are taken away, we experience grief, anger, or frustration. In this way, attachment becomes a source of vulnerability, as we tie our emotional well-being to something unstable or impermanent. The Stoics believe that attachment leads to suffering because it blinds us to the reality that we do not control, the world around us. In their texts, they discuss how attachment can distort our view of life. When we become too attached to a person, for instance, we begin to expect them to behave in certain ways, or we rely on them to fulfill needs that only we can meet. This creates tension in the relationship, as it places unrealistic demands on the other person. Moreover, if we lose that person, or if they change in ways we don't anticipate, we are left with emotional pain. According to Stoic thought, this pain arises not from the loss itself, but from our attachment to the idea that we needed that person or thing to be happy. In a sense, we suffer not because of external circumstances, but because we mistakenly believe our happiness depends on them. One of the key Stoic strategies for avoiding over-attachment is to regularly visualize the loss of things we hold dear. This may sound counterintuitive, but by mentally preparing ourselves for potential loss, we can cultivate a sense of detachment. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. By imagining the worst-case scenario, we allow ourselves to accept the reality that nothing is permanent. This doesn't mean that we don't care about the people or things we love. Rather, it allows us to appreciate them for what they are without clinging to them. When we practice this technique, we remind ourselves that life is constantly changing, and that true peace comes from accepting this impermanence. The more we mentally prepare for loss, the less devastating it will be when it actually happens. Another powerful tool the Stoics recommend is practicing gratitude for the present moment. Instead of focusing on what we fear losing or what we wish we shift our attention to what we already have. This practice helps us detach from future anxieties and past regrets, grounding us in the present. Gratitude helps us see the value in what is already in our lives, making us less likely to become attached to what we might lose. It's important to recognize that the people we love and the things we cherish are not guaranteed to stay with us forever, but that doesn't mean we should love them any less. By practicing gratitude, we can fully appreciate the people and experiences in our lives without depending on them for our happiness. Real-life scenarios often illustrate how attachment leads to stress, anxiety, and frustration. For instance, think about someone who becomes overly attached to their partner's behavior. They may constantly worry about whether their partner is happy, or they might feel anxious when their partner is upset, even if the issue has nothing to do with them. This kind of attachment creates emotional turmoil because it places the responsibility for one's happiness on someone else. Similarly, someone who is overly attached to their career might experience constant stress, fearing failure, or worrying about what will happen if they lose their job. In both cases, the attachment to an external outcome or person leads to an internal struggle, causing anxiety and preventing inner peace. These scenarios show how attachment often results in a constant state of worry, frustration, and a lack of control over our emotional well-being. The Stoic solution to this over-attachment is finding a balance between loving someone deeply and not being consumed by them. Love, in Stoic terms, is something we can offer freely, without expecting anything in return. It's about appreciating others for who they are, without trying to control or possess them. When we love someone with the understanding that they are separate from us, and that we can't control their emotions or actions, we free ourselves from the burden of expectation. This allows us to love more fully and freely, without being consumed by the need to control the relationship or the other person. Similarly, in our relationships with family, friends, or even material possessions, Stoicism teaches us to enjoy them for what they are, without allowing them to define our happiness. Stoic philosophers, such as Epictetus and Seneca, offer deep insights into how we can practice healthy detachment. Epictetus, for instance, taught that we should never attach our happiness to anything outside of ourselves. He believed that our well-being depends on how we respond to external events, not on the events themselves. In his view, attachment to people, possessions, or outcomes only leads to frustration because these things are beyond our control. Seneca, too, emphasized the importance of detachment, advising that we should not rely on external things for our peace of mind. He encouraged his readers to focus on what is within their control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, and to let go of the need to possess or control what is outside of us. Both philosophers understood that while attachment to people or things is natural, it's essential to maintain emotional independence in order to live a peaceful and fulfilling life. In conclusion, over-attachment is a source of suffering, and Stoicism offers practical methods for detaching in a healthy way. By visualizing loss, practicing gratitude, and focusing on what is within our control, we can free ourselves from the anxiety and stress that come from excessive attachment. Stoicism teaches us to love deeply without becoming consumed by the need for control, helping us build stronger, more balanced relationships. When we learn to detach, we can experience life and relationships without the constant fear of loss, and in doing so, we unlock true peace and emotional freedom. In society, we are often taught that needing someone is a sign of love, or that it shows strength and vulnerability in a relationship. We hear phrases like, "I can't live without you," or "you complete me," which reinforce the idea that we must depend on others to feel whole or loved. However, from a Stoic perspective, this narrative is not only misleading but potentially harmful. The Stoics would argue that true love doesn't come from dependence on another person. Instead, it arises from shared values, mutual respect, and the cultivation of virtue. When we truly love someone, we do not attach our sense of self-worth or happiness to them. We recognize that our fulfillment comes from within, not from relying on others to complete us. The Stoic view on love is about respect and virtue, not possession or dependence. To love someone, according to Stoic thought, is to value their character, to respect their autonomy, and to appreciate the relationship as a means of personal and mutual growth. Love, in this sense, becomes a shared journey where both individuals support each other, not out of necessity but out of a genuine desire to enhance each other's lives. It's a relationship rooted in virtue, where both people are free to be themselves without fear of losing their identity. Rather than feeling like we need someone to fill a gap or solve our problems, we love them for who they are, and in turn, we offer our best selves to them as well. Reframing the idea of needing someone is essential to building healthy, lasting relationships. Instead of thinking of love as an emotional crutch or a dependency, we can begin to see it as an appreciation of the other person's presence in our lives. When we say we need someone, we often imply that without them, we are incomplete or incapable of functioning. However, by shifting this mindset, we start to value people for what they bring to our lives, not because we rely on them to make us whole. The Stoic approach encourages us to appreciate the other person for who they are, not for what they can give us. It teaches us to value their companionship, their thoughts, their growth, and their individuality, without placing an expectation on them to fulfill every emotional need we have. Approaching relationships from a Stoic perspective means learning to love fully while maintaining our own autonomy. This doesn't mean we love less. It means we love with freedom. Instead of finding our happiness in the other person's actions or feelings, we find it within ourselves. We understand that our happiness does not depend on their behavior, and their happiness is not our responsibility. In this way, we can engage in deep, meaningful relationships without becoming overly attached or dependent on the other person. This allows for a sense of personal peace and independence, even in close relationships. When we remove the pressure of needing the other person to meet every emotional need, we allow space for mutual respect, personal growth, and genuine connection. The key distinction between healthy interdependence and unhealthy attachment is rooted in autonomy. Healthy interdependence means that both people in the relationship are able to stand on their own, yet choose to support and enrich each other's lives. They bring their best selves into the relationship, knowing that they don't need each other to feel whole, but rather choose to love and support each other out of respect and shared values. Unhealthy attachment, on the other hand, arises when one or both people feel that they cannot survive or be happy without the other. This kind of attachment leads to dependency, where the relationship becomes a source of stress rather than a source of joy. It causes one or both people to lose their sense of self in the process, relying on the other person for validation, security, or emotional support. Stoicism teaches us that in a healthy relationship, both people remain whole, independent individuals who come together to create something greater than what they could achieve alone. In conclusion, reframing the perception of need in relationships helps us move away from dependency and toward a deeper, more meaningful connection. By adopting the Stoic view of love as rooted in virtue, respect, and shared values, we can build relationships that allow for growth, autonomy, and mutual support. We begin to see that love is not about possession or fulfillment of every emotional need, but about appreciating and valuing the other person for who they are. By focusing on healthy interdependence rather than unhealthy attachment, we can create relationships that are not only fulfilling, but also empowering for both individuals involved. In Stoicism, personal growth is not just a way to improve yourself. It's a foundational practice that impacts every part of your life, including your relationships. The Stoics believe that we should always strive to be better versions of ourselves. This continuous self-improvement helps us detach from the need for external validation, allowing us to build healthier relationships. When we stop relying on others to validate our worth, we can interact with them from a place of strength and self-awareness, not from a place of need or insecurity. This shift reduces the emotional strain that often comes with relationships, as we no longer expect others to fill gaps or solve problems that we should be addressing ourselves. A key part of this personal growth is the practice of self-reflection. Taking time to examine our desires, reactions, and emotions helps us understand what drives us and why we respond the way we do. Often, Our desires and emotional reactions are influenced by unconscious needs or fears, like the fear of abandonment or the need to feel loved. By reflecting on these feelings, we can begin to identify their root causes and realize that many of our reactions are based on external factors that we cannot control. This realization brings peace, as we no longer feel that we need to rely on others to make us feel better or fulfill our needs. Self-reflection encourages us to ask important questions, such as, why do I feel this way? Or what is truly important to me in this relationship? It's through this process that we start to understand ourselves more deeply, which naturally leads to healthier, more balanced relationships. When we know ourselves, we can manage our emotions better, communicate more clearly, and respond to others in a way that fosters connection without dependence. We stop placing unrealistic expectations on our partners or loved ones, and instead focus on mutual support and understanding. We become more grounded in who we are, and this stability strengthens our relationships. By practicing self-reflection regularly, we become less reactive and more thoughtful, learning to act with intention rather than being driven by emotions or impulsive desires. One Stoic technique that promotes self-awareness is journaling. Writing down our thoughts, actions, and feelings every day allows us to reflect on our experiences and evaluate how we are living according to our values. It's a way to measure our progress and track our emotional state. Journaling helps us to become more aware of our attachments and desires, and how these affect our relationships. It's also a tool for reducing attachment, as it encourages us to reflect on what is truly within our control, our actions, reactions, and thoughts, while letting go of the things outside our control. This practice helps to foster emotional independence, as we begin to recognize that we don't need to rely on anyone else to feel complete. Instead, we can trust ourselves to handle the challenges that life presents, both within and outside of our relationships. In essence, the practice of self-reflection and self-improvement in Stoicism helps us become the best versions of ourselves, reducing dependency on others for validation or emotional support. It leads to deeper self-awareness and healthier relationships, allowing us to love and connect with others without losing ourselves in the process. By journaling, reflecting on our actions, and striving for continuous growth, we can create a life that is fulfilling, independent, and in alignment with our true values. Stoicism isn't just a theory or a set of ideas, it's a practical philosophy that can be applied to all areas of life, including our romantic relationships. Whether we are dealing with breakups, unreciprocated love, or emotional turmoil, Stoic principles offer a way to approach these challenges with calm and clarity. For instance, when faced with a breakup, many people might feel devastated, lost, or even angry. These emotions can often lead to poor decisions like clinging to unhealthy attachments or seeking validation from the wrong sources. However, a Stoic approach encourages us to reflect on what we can control, the way we respond, our actions, and our mindset, while accepting what we cannot control, like the other person's feelings or actions. By adopting this perspective, we can navigate the pain of a breakup with greater resilience, understanding that our worth is not defined by another person's love or approval. Similarly, when experiencing unreciprocated love, the Stoic mindset helps us deal with the disappointment without letting it consume us. Instead of feeling entitled to someone else's affection, Stoicism teaches us to focus on our own emotional strength. The Stoic practice of recognizing that we cannot control the feelings of others allows us to detach from unhealthy attachments and avoid the emotional turmoil that comes from trying to force someone to love us. Instead of obsessing over unreturned love, we can shift our focus to self-improvement and the things within our control, like cultivating our own virtues and seeking fulfillment from within. This shift in mindset leads to peace of mind, as we accept that love is not something we can demand from others, but something that should naturally evolve based on shared values and respect. Stoic thought leaders like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus were not only philosophers but also individuals who had to apply Stoicism to their own personal relationships. Marcus Aurelius, for example, had to balance the responsibilities of being an emperor with being a husband and father. He often reflected on the impermanence of life and the importance of maintaining emotional independence, even while deeply caring for his loved ones. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, also applied Stoic principles to his relationships, teaching that we must focus on what is within our control and let go of the desire to control others. Both of these philosophers emphasized the importance of focusing on virtue and character rather than relying on external validation or circumstances. They showed that by practicing Stoic principles, we can maintain peace and integrity in our relationships, no matter how difficult or challenging they may be. Applying Stoicism to our romantic relationships can truly transform them. By understanding the difference between healthy interdependence and unhealthy attachment, we can create relationships where both partners thrive individually while still supporting each other. Stoicism teaches us that love is not about dependency, but about mutual respect, shared values, and a deep appreciation for the other person as they are, not as someone who completes us. When both individuals in a relationship practice emotional independence and self-awareness, the relationship becomes stronger, not because of dependence on one another, but because both partners are secure in themselves. This creates an environment where both people can grow together, without losing sight of who they are individually. By applying Stoic principles to our romantic relationships, we can create healthier, more fulfilling connections. Whether dealing with challenges like breakups or unreciprocated love, Stoicism helps us maintain perspective and emotional strength, allowing us to approach our relationships with clarity, compassion, and resilience. Just like the great Stoic philosophers who practiced these principles in their own lives, we too can navigate the complexities of love with grace and wisdom, creating a life where we thrive independently while supporting each other in meaningful ways. As we've explored, emotional independence is a cornerstone of healthy, lasting relationships. It's the ability to love and care for someone deeply without losing yourself in the process. The Stoic principle teaches us not to become overly dependent on others for our happiness or fulfillment. True strength comes from within, from our ability to control our reactions, manage our desires, and maintain a sense of peace regardless of external circumstances. When we are emotionally self-sufficient, we are not looking to another person to complete us, but instead, we enter relationships as whole individuals, ready to support each other without clinging or controlling. The power of love that is free from attachment and dependency is incredibly freeing. It's a love that comes from respect, shared values, and mutual growth. When both partners are strong and secure in themselves, the relationship can flourish without the fear of losing each other or being consumed by emotional need. This kind of love is not about ownership or possession, but about creating a space where both individuals can thrive. If you want to build stronger, healthier relationships, it's essential to incorporate Stoic practices into your life. Reflect on your desires and actions. Maintain your emotional independence, and let go of unhealthy attachments. With these practices, you will find yourself in relationships that are built on mutual respect and true connection, rather than neediness or dependency. Remember, she needs you more than you'll ever need her, but only if you are emotionally self-sufficient and strong.